Yes, indeed. It is Saturday, November 8th, 2025. Today we're going to have a lesson on headaches, and then we're going to play some Hollow Knight Silk Song. So it's time for us to do our breathing exercise. We do this before every lesson because it's very important. I'll tell you why afterwards, but I just want you to follow along. All you got to do is take 1 minute of your time, 60 seconds. We're going to take 3 deep breaths together. We'll follow the GIF on the screen, and what we're going to do is breathe in through our nose for 4 seconds. We're going to hold it gently for 5 seconds. And then we're going to exhale slowly through the mouth for 6 seconds. When the pink ball gets to the top of the screen next, we'll begin. We breathe in the dark green section. We hold it in the white. We breathe out in the light green section. So get yourself ready. Relax. And here we go. Ready? And breathe in. 2, 3, 4, and hold it. And exhale nice and slow out through the mouth, all the way out. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4, and hold it. Exhale. Don't leave any stale air in there. Let it all out. One more time. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4, and hold it. And exhale. And you're done. That's it. 3 deep breaths. That's all it takes. We do this before every lesson because in the modern world, we breathe very rapid and very shallow. And that leaves us more susceptible to stress and anxiety. This is a great exercise to do right away in the morning. Get yourself centered right before bed to relax, or anytime you're about to do something stressful, like a test or an interview or something. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. My name is Mr. Aejis, and I will be your teacher for this session. I am a health teacher in the real world, and I stream indie games, classic games, first-time playthroughs, and I give health and wellness lessons just like this one that we're about to do. We're going to talk about headaches, because everybody has them. So let's talk about how we can prevent them. The Temoyake for the head, Loresno says. Completely accurate. First question we got to ask ourselves, of course, is what is a headache? Well, a headache isn't just one thing. There are 150 types or more of headaches, and of course, we can't talk about all of them. We're going to talk about a few categories of headaches. Before we really get going, of course, I'm not a medical doctor. I can't tell you to take medications, and I'm not going to. We're going to go over what the best practices are for lifestyle changes, basic prevention, and your most basic treatments. The little things that you can do to make it less likely that you'll get headaches and to make those headaches pass quicker. There are 2 main categories of headache. There's primary headaches, in which the headache is the problem. It's the thing. There isn't an underlying cause. It's not a symptom of something else that's happening. It's just that you're having a headache. The other big main category is secondary headaches, which are headaches caused by some other condition. They're a symptom of the condition. But headaches, well, we all have them, right? By the numbers, headaches are the 3rd biggest medical issue. The 7th biggest cause of disability. But about 96% of people are affected by headaches, and the other 4% I think are lying, because I don't know of anyone who's never been affected by a headache. I think it's sort of like those 9 doctors out of 10 or something. The best estimation by the World Health Organization is that it costs us about $14 billion a year in lost productivity. Tension headaches, which we will get into momentarily, are the most common, making up about 40% of headache issues, with migraines accounting for about 10%. Yeah, 96% of people are affected by headaches in general. 75% of doctor visits by people whose main complaint is a headache, it's a primary headache. There really isn't anything that they could do for them. This leads to a great deal of unnecessary cost. But I do want to touch on these secondary headaches first, before we get deeper, because these being headaches that are caused by something else, well, they're symptoms, and of course you would want to first treat the cause. If you have a headache because of dehydration, well, that's what you need to address. Sinus congestion, and we will touch on sinus headaches in a bit. Some headaches may be caused by medications that you take, so it's usually not the headache that's the major concern. It's whatever else. For example, on the screen, head injuries, neck injuries, embolisms or clots, strokes, ruptures, infections, and all kinds of other things that might be the main cause of the headache. And Rao, of course, sharing our brain cells. We'll touch on that very soon. I mention these first because these are things that are preventable generally through lifestyle changes. Like drug use, alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, caffeine. These are modifiable behaviors in your life that you can change that can lead to headaches. Because our brains are pretty fragile. There's a lot of stuff going on up there. First and foremost, the red stuff, as in blood. All these arteries and veins coursing through your skull meat, your mech pilot flesh bulb. But we want to talk primarily about, well, primary headache, because these are the kinds that are going to be more likely. Primary headaches break down into three main categories. Tension headaches, migraine headaches, and cluster headaches. These are the three that we're going to focus on. Tension headaches, migraines, and cluster headaches. The first we'll talk about is, of course, tension headaches, because they are the most common, making up about 40% of all headaches. And as you might guess, they're caused by, well, primarily tension. They occur generally on the scalp, in the forehead, on the back of the head, or on the sides. They feel generally like a dull, aching pressure. The sort of most classic headache. When you've got a dull, throbbing pressure in your head. They're generally not the most painful, mild to moderate. But being the most common, they're probably the most annoying and the most likely that we'll encounter. Thankfully, tension headaches are also generally the most preventable by making modifications to our lifestyle. About 40% of adults yearly will have at least one tension headache, and 80% of people will have one at least in their lifetime. And again, I feel like the other 20% are lying, but I can't prove it. Not yet, at least. They generally last around 30 minutes. Of course, they can last quite a bit longer, though. They typically get worse or begin after the end of the day, after a period of stress. The most likely to experience them, though, are women between 20 and 50. This definitely, Henry, is the one where stress falls under. Yes. Some of the main triggers for tension headaches are muscle tension. Get it? Tension headache. Poor posture, eye strain. Mental stress issues, anxiety and poor sleep. Irregular eating. Not hydrating well enough. And caffeine use. All sounds like things that we can modify. because they are. But we also have to talk about the other red stuff, that is, the muscles. Tension headaches arise from a mix of things: muscle tension, stress-related pain, changes in how the brain perceives pain. And one of the biggest sources is sustained contraction of our muscles in the scalp, in the neck, in the shoulder, and in the eye. There are dozens of muscles all around the face and in the head. There's a bunch of muscles just around your eye. The stuff that lets it move in all directions, side to side and up and down and diagonally. And if those are frequently flexed, really tensed and contracted, that can lead to a headache. That makes sense, right? If you're carrying constant tension in those muscles, these small little muscles around the face and in the eyes. But posture, as Egbert brings up, being a software dev, majestically through the sky, but I can walk. They can walk. Other Pokemon can shout and shoot lasers from their mouth, but I can walk. They can walk. Thank you for that. But speaking of posture, as Egbert was noting, it's both sitting at our desk posture and our phone posture. Every degree that you are bending your head to look down at your phone is an increase in the amount of weight, the amount of stress being put on those neck and shoulder muscles. And having all that consistent pull, that consistent tension around your head and neck does make it more likely that you'll experience a tension headache. Not a natural position for your neck to be in. But we all suffer from bad posture at times. It's hard to break out of that pattern. But it's good to remind yourself. You don't want incorrect gaming posture. Slouched over, your hands slouched over, your neck bent forward, your face so close to the screen, your eyes so close to the screen. Your knees bent too close to the chair. Let's sit up nice and straight, have a nice curve. Got a shrimp, no shrimping. Eyes up, a good distance from the screen. Hands up. Be like this demon on the right. But it's not just posture in your neck and in your back. There's another big one. One of my favorite lessons that I've given you many times. And it's sleep. We have to talk about sleep because it affects everything. That's why it's such an important lesson. Sleep will affect every aspect of your physical and mental health and well-being. You want to sleep like Homer, dead to the world. And how do we do that? How do we get good sleep? Well, we're not going to go over the full lesson. I'll give the sleep health lesson again soon. We'll go over the basic steps. First, though, I want you to tell me what they are. If you've been here before, if you've been in our class, if you've seen our sleep lesson, let me know what one of those steps is. Tell me what you remember about our sleep health lesson. Try to sleep on the bed. Create a bedtime ritual, Nightshade says, and that is exactly right. One of the most important, best things you can do is create a bedtime ritual. Absolutely, Nightshade. Be consistent. Have a schedule so that your body knows what time of the day it is. Make your sleep area just for sleep. Not a place to eat or study or game. Make sure to get a little bit of daily activity and a little bit of natural sunlight. Keep your sleeping area quiet and dark, like the night itself. Keep your space clean and it in a good temperature. Give yourself that 30-minute wind down, that nightly ritual. And put the phone away. Put the phone down. At least a half hour before bed. Get that phone out of your face. Not just so that you don't get the blue light. But why else? Why else do you think you would want to keep that phone away from you? Not just as a physical thing, but as a mental thing. What are we usually doing on our phones? Yeah, Nightshade, it keeps your brain awake. We're usually scrolling. We're getting stimulation, input. It makes us think about things. You don't want to be thinking about too much when you're trying to sleep. Yeah, your phone is a stimulus, as Egbert says. You're ruminating on everything you're reading, everything you're seeing. The only thing I want to hear in my head right before I go to sleep I want that to be the only thing bouncing around in my brain when I try to sleep. The reason it is so important is that good sleep will help you balance your neurotransmitters, reduces your stress. Obviously, you feel better rested. Sleep is when your body does a lot of its healing, relaxes yourself, balances your hormone levels, your cortisol, lowers anxiety, and sleep actually impacts your pain threshold. You'll be better able to deal with minor aches and pains and head pains. It isn't just about quantity or quality, though. It's both. Drink a little water. Yeah. Get some hydration. It is about both quality and quantity. You want that sleep to be quality. You want at least a minimum of 7. Now, if you remember from our sleep lesson, there was something special about one particular period of sleep that might give you a clue as to why it's so important to get at least that 7. Why would you want to get at least 7? As I drink Mountain Dew and not follow my own guidelines. And that's right, Egbert. It is because of those cycles. You want to get into REM sleep. You want to get a couple of cycles. You want to get 4 to 6 sleep cycles so that you go through the whole thing. Stage 1, stage 2, where you might remember our brain does a lot of its decompressing and decompiling, through to REM sleep, and then the cycle starts over again. Each time, you're spending more and more time in REM sleep. You want to make sure that your body's getting the chance to go through those cycles a good couple times. And you need to stay regular because it's actually not easy to catch up. You can't just catch up on lost sleep. Yeah, you can sleep in on the weekends, but that doesn't actually solve your sleep debt. If you miss out on an hour or 2 of sleep, it can take you a full week to recover from that. So save yourself the time. Might as well just get good sleep. And in case you weren't here for it, I will show our little shorts version of our sleep health lesson. Hey, you, stop scrolling. Fix your sleep. I know you're not getting enough sleep, or enough good sleep, especially if you're a content creator. Sleep affects literally every aspect of your physical and mental health and well-being. In the short term, it slashes your memory, cognition, and leads to poor judgment. In the long term, it leads to anxiety, depression, diabetes, heart attack, and all-cause mortality risk. It's a public health crisis. We could spend hours talking about why and how sleep works, and we have. But let's cut to the chase and the steps that you can take right now to improve your sleep that we went over in our sleep health lesson. So don't wait. Number 1, be consistent. Set a schedule right now. Block off the time that you are going to set aside each day for sleep. Train your body and brain that this is the time for sleep. Number 2, create a ritual. Your pre-sleep ritual is 20 to 30 minutes of transitioning yourself to sleep mode. Wash your face, brush your teeth, brush your hair, take a few minutes to stretch out and a few minutes to read quietly, or jot down your final thoughts for the evening in a journal. Cue your body and brain to know that this is the time to get ready to sleep. Number 3, create a sleep space. commit to using your bed and the surrounding area just for sleep. It's not a dining room, an office, or an arcade. Declutter, keep your sheets, pillows, and blankets clean, and keep it dark, cool, quiet, and comfortable. And train your body and brain that this is the place for sleep. Number 4, decide how you're going to get some movement each day. Getting 30 minutes of moderate physical activity each day? You're 55% less likely to experience insomnia, especially if you can get outdoors and get some natural sunlight during that time. And lastly, you knew this was coming. Put the phone away. Put the phone away. Put the phone away. Set aside your devices for that half-hour ritual and don't pick it back up again until it's time to wake up. Not only does device use inhibit natural melatonin, dysregulating hormones and interfering with your sleep cycle, but the content itself is keeping your brain agitated, aroused, and anxious during the most critical stage of the transition to sleep. So, turn it off. Use something else as an alarm, or turn off its connection. But however you do it, don't use your phone if possible for at least 30 minutes before bed. Your sleep quality can make or break your mood, health, and performance in work, school, and life. And it can be the difference between streamer burnout and making it through. Take it seriously. You deserve it. My name is Mr. Aegis, your health teacher VTuber. Tune in weekly for health and wellness lessons and variety gaming. And with that, class dismissed. Who was that handsome badger man? Yeah, so that is our short version. If you need a little refresher. But the other thing, of course, is stress itself. Why did we do that breathing exercise at the beginning of the lesson? Why do we do it before every lesson? Because it's very important. Regular breathing exercises help to reduce your stress. Poor breathing leads to poor oxygenation, leads to more stress and anxiety, leads to greater tension, leads to more headaches. So it's kind of like I've been pushing that breathing exercise for a pretty good reason, huh? And of course, regular physical activity, as was mentioned in the short, doesn't just help your sleep, it helps prevent headaches itself. Regular physical activity and relaxation, avoiding sedentary behavior, moving every 60 minutes. There's a reason why we do our little break every 60 minutes. I'm not just winging it out here. Because the other red stuff, our muscles, moving those gives us stress relief, helps improve our circulation, improves sleep, and improves our muscle tension. Dark Flare, you say it's definitely something you need lately. I would imagine you're not alone, and maybe we should all try this together. And come back next week and talk about how well it went. If we were to all actually follow those guidelines. I don't always. Suzuna Amano, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight in the classroom. We were just talking about how stress and sleep impacts our headaches, our likelihood of getting headaches. Getting a little bit of physical movement each day. Oh, thank you so much for the gold stars. And Sketch the Wolf is here as well. Our good friend Sketch the Wolf. Yeah, getting a little bit of physical movement each day not only helps improve your sleep in itself, but it will also reduce your likelihood of getting tension headaches. Because if we're already hunched up by our desks all the time with poor posture, putting our faces in our screens all the time and having eye strain, all of that muscle tension in our neck and in our scalp will increase the likelihood of tension headaches if we're not getting out there and doing a little bit of physical movement. And avoiding sedentary behavior, not sitting around for 2-3 hours at a time. So you should be moving around at least once an hour, which is why we will be doing our movement breaks every hour. Of course, when you do get that physical activity, you want to avoid overexertion because that can actually increase your likelihood of headaches. You want to make sure that that activity is balanced. Make sure that you are warming up and cooling down to try to get a total amount of 150 minutes a week. That's about 2.5 hours each week. How do you think you could get your 2.5 hours a week? Or how do you do currently? How are you currently getting your physical activity throughout the day? What kind of things do you like to do? And DJ Duck has enrolled. Thank you. Thank you so much for enrolling in our little classroom learning community. I like to take walks. I have a grocery store down the road, so I always walk to the grocery store whenever I can. Playing with the ferrets gives me some physical activity. Maybe we'll go down there tonight. We'll turn on the camera in their room and we'll go down there and play with them if you're good. We'll play with our class pets. Oh god, the apples! Oh no, Papyrus is here. Papyrus, please. Oh! Oh, thanks, Skitch. Oh, we really do need to go back and play Deltarune again, don't we? And Undertale. Yes, Egbert. Driving less, walking when feet. Oh! Of course, I also have to do yard work, which, well, that's plenty of physical activity. Not the most enjoyable, but it's got to be done. But yeah, whatever you do, especially if you can get some of that physical activity outside and get that natural light, it will help your circadian rhythm. But besides all of the sleep health tips that we went over, and regular breathing exercises like we did at the start of the lesson, and getting regular physical activity, you should also be watching your eye strain. Because we showed all those little muscles in the eye, right? All of these little muscles in the eye are constantly pulling and tugging on your eyeball to get them to move up and down and left and right and side to side. And heavy eye strain does contribute to our headaches, the likelihood of you experiencing a tension headache. Especially if we're staring at stuff really close and not getting a break. So we want to follow the 20-20-20 rule, which means that for every 20 minutes that you're looking at something, look away. Look at something else that's about 20 feet away or about 20 seconds. So I want you to do that right now, class. I want you to look away from the screen, find something in the room that's, well, if not 20 feet away, at least far out, as far out as you can, and look at it for 20 seconds. While we listen to this chill-ass track by Webinar. Here, Sherma will keep us company. So tell me, what did you look at? It doesn't have to be anything special. It could have just been the wall. But what else in the room did you look at? Egbert looked at a lamp. Hopefully not a bright lamp looking directly at it. There's your TV that's like 5 feet away count. Dark flare close, I guess. And repair the front door. Very good. Rao, you came back from making quesadillas for children. Did you make one for me? Did you make enough for the class? You see how easy that was? It is not enough that I must touch grass, Skitch says. I must lay in it. Assimilate it. I'm one with it. Lose yourself in the music the moment you own it. Oh, that's a different reference. Yeah, get outside, get some movement, touch the grass, see the sky, and look at something other than your screen for a while. Like Mae Borowski with her nightmare eyes. But we got to talk about something else related to headaches. And thankfully, Rao just gave us the opening by talking about quesadillas. We're going to talk about food and drink. We're going to talk about the nutritional aspects that can impact our headaches. Good things for our nutrition when it comes to preventing tension headaches and headaches generally are having a good electrolyte balance, specifically magnesium. Getting good inflammatory rich food, anti-inflammatory rich foods like omega-3s from things like fish and walnuts. Getting plenty of antioxidants from things like berries and greens. And yes, not everything in this picture is a berry. Strawberries are not berries. Bananas are berries, though. That's right. Strawberries are not berries, but bananas are berries. Artificial sweeteners give you migraines, Rao. That is actually a thing. That is true. Artificial sweeteners can induce headaches. Bananas are berries, yeah. Berries come in bunches like bananas do. Things you want to avoid, though, things that might increase your likelihood of getting headaches, are processed foods, especially processed meats. Things like hot dogs, bacon, deli meat. Processed meats with nitrates might make it more likely for you to experience headaches. Fermented and aged foods as well can induce headaches. Oh, I got Deku nutted. Ouch. Chocolate and artificial sweeteners, as Ra was pointing out earlier, yes, those can also make it more likely that you'll experience headaches. So, just like with sleep, try to be consistent in your nutrition. Keeping your blood sugar stable will help. What about cup noodles? Well, cup noodles would have a lot of sodium, generally. Although you can minimize that by simply not using as much of the seasoning packet. Other than that, nothing really wrong with it. But as we're all about in our classroom here, we love hydration, so we're going to talk about that. Why is nutrition? Why is hydration so important when it comes to headaches? Well, water balance is your circulation. Your brain is very sensitive to the levels of your blood volume. Low blood volume may equal low oxygenation. Low flow of blood through the system. The vessels dilate, greater pressure. What about coffee? Well, caffeine can induce headaches. It can relieve headaches in small amounts. But excessive reliance on caffeine, especially withdrawal from caffeine, can cause very severe headaches. Dehydration can also make your muscles more tense. And as we know, when your muscles are more tense, you're more likely to have headaches. So keep yourself hydrated. Check your pee chart. That's right, check your pee chart. Make sure that pee is nice and clear. Let me pee clear. As it gets darker and darker, you're more and more dehydrated. And remember, if you're feeling thirsty, you've already been thirsty. The thirst sensation takes a little time for it to actually be felt. And of course, if you've got red or blue pee, it's time to talk to the doctor. Which can happen. You can get blue pee, usually from medication. Cramps can cause headaches. Yes, Empress, absolutely right. There are some external factors, though, that can influence our headache likelihood. Some environmental factors. Things that you're seeing on the screen right there. Heat and humidity. Some people can be sensitive to the pressure in the air and to the heat. Obviously, pollen and air quality, air pollution, can make it more likely to experience headaches. On the oxygen, can you extend the length of how long you do each step? Darkflare asks. You mean in the breathing exercise? Henry Berry asks, red is obvious. Blood, what is the blue? Yes, some medications can lead to blue or green urine, which might be normal for that medication, but still something to talk to the doctor about. Or to the Men in Black, I guess. It might be an alien. Yes, absolutely, Darkflare. In fact, that exercise, the 4, 5, 6 that we do, it's actually usually a 4, 7, 8. But I do a condensed version because that 4, 7, 8 can sometimes be difficult for people. So you would breathe in slowly through the nose for 4 seconds and hold it gently for 7, and then exhale very slowly for 8. And do that for 3 cycles or 6 for 2 minutes. I like that exercise particularly. You can do box breathing, which is the 4 by 4, 4 seconds for each thing. I like the 4, 7, 8 or the 4, 5, 6 because that extra holding time makes your lungs really pull that oxygen out. And sometimes we focus on taking a good deep breath in, but we don't always take a good, slow, deep breath out. We don't always get all that stale air out of our lungs. Obviously, some people are also very sensitive to light and sound, and that can be a trigger for headaches. Even if it doesn't feel like it's too light, too bright, or too loud. If it's consistent throughout the day, you're at work and it's kind of loud wherever you're working. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but then you get home and it hits you. Ah, yes, dark flare, asthma. That is actually specifically one of the reasons why we do that exercise, because for people with asthma, one of the problems can be getting a full exhalation out. And doing the longer exhales, getting all the air out, it helps your elastic rebound. It helps your lungs get the next breath in. So the recommendation would be to do that exercise, maybe not for as long, but more frequently throughout the day. Henry, you have epilepsy, so you're on the light one. Yeah, for sure. Something to be concerned with. Be careful with. Not the only one in our classroom either. And of course, we are constantly exposed to fumes and chemicals all day long, wherever we are, even if it's just our own cleaning chemicals. So be wary of that. I actually wear a mask when I do my house cleaning. So those are some prevention methods. Talk about what we do when we get a headache. Now, naturally, the first thing most people do, they reach for an over-the-counter medication. They reach for aspirin, ibuprofen, naproxen. They take a Tylenol, which does not cause autism, by the way. Just going to get that out of the way right away. And there are tons of different things that you can take, and I'm not going to tell you to take them because we don't give medical advice. But these are generally safe and effective as directed, and if you do take them, you should take them only as directed for as long as directed. They come in every different shape and size and variety. There are things specifically formulated for tension headaches, migraines. But if you are taking them as directed, generally they are safe and effective. But you should also be aware of the potential side effects. Usually they are very minimal. Some nausea, gastrointestinal distress, and very rarely serious side effects. But if you have a bleeding disorder, you have a liver condition, you have any cardiovascular health issues, be sure to consult your doctor first before just reaching for one of these. But that's what everyone does when they have a headache. They take one of these kinds of pills. And that's okay, but what else can we do besides just take an aspirin when we have a headache? Well, compresses, warm and cold compresses can help with tension headaches. Warm compresses for your muscles, because they've been tense throughout the day, leading to those headaches. You can relax them with a warm compress around the neck and the shoulders. A cold compress is helpful for some people on the forehead. Put a nice cool rag. Don't apply ice directly to it. Yes, Empress, some people benefit from a warm or hot shower, helping to relax your stiff muscles. For some people, though, the hot shower might make the headache worse. You have to basically check for yourself. People are very different. I like a hot shower, but if I stay in for too long, it does tend to make my headaches worse. I get a little overheated. One thing that doesn't help to apply to your forehead. You want to know something that doesn't help if you apply it to your forehead, class? Head on, apply directly to the trash can. Head on, apply directly to the trash can. Head on, apply directly to the trash can. Yeah, head on. You might be old enough to remember these commercials, these very annoying, loud commercials that were actually so loud that there were complaints to the FTC, I believe. But they were also super annoying and just repeated over and over again. And they were absolutely a scam, Empress. Yes, they were a complete scam. They didn't do anything. They were 99% wax. They just stuck wax in essentially a glue stick tube and put a tiny amount of iris versicolor, white brioni, and potassium dichromate, none of which, as a combination, were really shown to do anything. The company claimed that they had research evidence that it helped. They never released it. It was a complete placebo, as Henry Bear points out. It did not work. They did get sued. They did go out of business. And all that is left of their legacy are these super annoying commercials. But yeah, the other thing you can do that you can apply to your body is your own body. Gentle massage can be helpful to those stiff necks, temples, and your trapezius muscles. Here's an example from one doctor giving some advice.
Hey, do you get those nasty tension headaches right here, making it impossible to focus on anything? Here's how to get relief in seconds with a simple self-massage technique. You see the muscles of the head, like the frontalis, which raises your eyebrows, the procerus, which lowers the middle part of your eyebrows, and the temporalis, which helps with chewing and clenching, can get all tight and tender, sending pain signals to the brain, causing those nasty headaches. Start by placing your fingers in this area at the top of the nose and gently dragging upwards. You can even drag slightly outward like so. To get even more relief, place your index fingers above your forehead and drag outwards towards the temples. Each repetition going higher and higher till you've covered the entire forehead. Next position, take your fingers and do light circular massages on your temples. This usually feels really, really good as it releases the temporalis that can refer pain throughout this area. This is something you can try anytime you feel tension building up throughout the day. And if you need more help, check out the link in my bio for my signature headache rewrite process.
I will put a link to that channel in the video description. But yes, apply the body directly to the trash can. Sometimes that's where it needs to go. Yes, gentle release of the muscles that are tight and stiff that might be causing you those headaches. And of course, hydration and rest. Obviously, if you have the capacity to rest when you have a headache, you should. But not all of us can. Sometimes you got to power through it. Sometimes you got to work through it. Sometimes you're stuck at work. So those OTCs, those compresses, a little gentle massage might be what helps get you through the day. That brings us to the second type of headaches that we want to talk about, and that is migraine. Now, I want to say a lot of people think that they have migraines. But a migraine is not just a bad headache. A migraine is not just a very bad headache. Migraine is a specific type of thing. Migraine is a neurological problem. Migraine headaches are generally more severe. They generally involve more throbbing pain and nausea, more sensitivity to light and sound, and they generally last a lot longer. But they aren't just a strong headache. And if you think you're having a migraine, you might not be. Generally, migraines are on one side of the body, or on one side of the head. Like this character, for some reason looks like they belong in the Aeon Flux cartoon from the 90s. I don't know why this image came up when I searched for migraines. But migraines affect generally about 15% of the population. Women are 2 to 3 times more likely to experience migraines. But for as small a percentage of the population as migraines affect, they are a pretty high cause of disability. And generally, they start early in adulthood for people who experience them. As you can see in the chart, women experience migraines much more likely. Women experience migraines much more frequently than men. They begin in early adulthood, 18 to 44, and then continue throughout life. But like I said, migraines are a specific type of disorder, not just a bad headache. So there's specific stages that happen during a migraine. Why do they happen? Empress asks, is it caused by the nerves being rattled around? Well, I'm going to read off what it says, or as far as what the research tends to say. And that is, scientific... Let me try that again. And that is, scientific evidence supports the notion that migraine pathophysiology involves inherited alteration of brain excitability, intracranial arterial dilatation, recurrent activation and sensitization of the trigeminal vascular pathway, and consequential structural and functional changes in genetically susceptible individuals. I think that's a pretty long sentence that says there's a variety of things that cause it, and we don't really know exactly how it works. But there is a specific timeline for a migraine, specific stages that it occurs in. And that would help you know if you're having a migraine or just a regular bad headache. Because there are 4 stages to a migraine. There is the prodrome, which is sort of a precursor stage. There's what's called the aura. Then there is the actual full headache period, and then a period that is known as the postdrome. What does that mean, though? Well, the prodrome, or the pre-migraine, can start a few hours before the full migraine, or even days. During this period, a person might experience irritability. They might feel down. They might feel like they have trouble getting enough oxygen and they're yawning a lot. Sensitivity to light and sound might start showing itself. Might be hard to focus. They might have trouble sleeping. And that might be the indicator that they are about to experience a migraine. People who have migraines sometimes start to pick up on this, and they start feeling these symptoms and they know that they're going to have a migraine. Then the aura happens, and aura is a word that you'll probably hear a lot if you talk about migraines or you suspect you're having migraines and you're talking to your doctor. Visual issues like shapes or spots or flashes. Their body might feel like pins and needles. There might be a one-sided weakness or numbness on the body, and they may have trouble talking. The actual headache period, though, that tends to feel like throbbing or drilling. Some people call it an ice pick pain, which is not something I ever want to experience again. The pain will be so strong, people will feel nauseous or even throw up. There can be significant mood alteration. They may also experience simultaneous muscle pain and stiffness with the migraine. Afterwards, after it finally subsides, after a few hours to potentially up to 72 hours, there's a post-drome period where people feel drained. They might feel confused. They might continue to have mood issues. Your gastrointestinal system might feel disturbed. They may even have some rebound headaches. Egbert, you've had seizures enough to know that auras aren't fun. No, they are not. So if you're wondering if you've had migraines or if you're having migraines, you're not going through some of these issues, it's probably not a migraine. Doesn't mean that it can't be, but not as likely. These have similar mental and physical triggers to your tension headaches, but they are even more connected potentially to dietary issues. Eating foods that can trigger migraines. Particularly, it's a good idea to avoid alcohol and caffeine use if you experience migraines. Certain medications can make it more likely. Vasodilators, certain mental health medications. So if you are experiencing migraines or you are taking certain medications, talk to your doctor. Don't just get information from the internet, not even from your faithful, loyal health teacher. And people with migraines can also be particularly sensitive to weather changes. Hormone fluctuations, especially throughout the menstrual cycle, can impact migraines, which is part of the reasons why women are more likely to experience migraines. And thyroid issues can also influence it. But I want to bring a question to you, because migraines and headaches generally, bad tension headaches, but migraines especially, are more common in people who are in the lower income brackets. People who are in lower socioeconomic status are more likely to experience these issues. Now, there's a genetic component. Family history increases risk of migraines quite a bit. But it is a pretty clear trend that people in lower incomes tend to have more of these issues. I want to ask you, there's no right or wrong answer. I want to ask you why. Why you think that is. Egbert says more stress and less sleep. Henry Bear says a lot more stress. Rouse says that it's a stress-related factor. Rest in peace, Alex Trebek. Yes, you are all correct. More human interaction, for real, for real. Yes, yes. Absolutely, Awa. Is that how you pronounce that? Awa? Uwu? Ugu? Kawaii desu ne? Ara ara. But yes, you're all absolutely correct. Higher stress. People in lower socioeconomic status tend to have higher workload. We have less downtime. We also tend to spend more time in front of screens because when we do have more downtime, we're typically more exhausted. We're not doing as much physically active behavior. There's also a sleep component and generally less access to healthy food or eating more convenience food, processed food. And as we said, processed food is a contributing factor to headaches. Reduced access to healthcare. And people in lower socioeconomic zones are also exposed to more pollution, are more likely to smoke, are more likely to drink too much. Longer commutes, Zetsunava, that's a very good point. Under-considered. Not only is that additional stress, but it also reduces your downtime, reduces your free time. You're spending more of your free time getting to work and school. It's just something to think about. These are usually things that are impacted by economic issues. When we talked about sleep health, when we talked about alcohol and tobacco, all of those things. If you do experience migraines, it is generally a good idea and recommended to track your triggers. to keep a migraine diary and write down what was happening before that migraine. What was happening that might have been one of the triggers so that you can avoid that in the future. If you do experience them, making sure that you have a cool, quiet, dark room prepared, ready to go. Or if you are in that prodrome period and you think, well, I feel one coming on, get yourself ready. Avoid prolonged exposure to bright lights or flickering lights. Other than that, it's similar treatment to tension headaches. But of course, you should be getting clinical support. Should be getting, if possible, if you have access to healthcare, getting help from your doctor. And yes, Rao, more commuting means more huffing on those fumes. Oh, it's terrible. Or really any kind of headache, though. You should be consulting your doctor if any of them are frequent, disabling episodes. If you're having more than a couple a month, if the usual treatments don't help, if there are new symptoms that you haven't had before that start happening, if those headaches start being accompanied by fever or rash, or if they start affecting your vision, and if you've had a head injury or experience a headache in the aftermath of a head injury, go see your doctor. Do not put that off. No head injury is a minor head injury, in my estimation. Or if you experience a seizure at any time. If you have had seizures regularly, you've already been talking to your doctor, you know the procedure. If you've never had a seizure before, definitely time to consult your doctor. There is one subtype of headache I want to talk about, though, because it's generally one that isn't very common, and people think they have it a lot, and that's a sinus headache. Sinus headaches exist, and they're generally caused by inflammation or infection in your sinuses, which, is why they're called sinus headaches. But we have all these sinuses in our face. A sinus just means a cavity, an empty space. We have these little empty spaces, these hollow spaces throughout the front of the skull. And inflammation or infection of these kind of pressure, these swollen tissues, pressure changes can affect your pain receptors and cause a headache. However, most people who think they have a sinus headache, they're actually having a migraine or a tension headache. These things happen, and they lead to a deep pain in the forehead, in the face, because they are occurring deep in these cavities. But when you have a headache, it's usually not a sinus headache. They're actually rather rare. The American Migraine Foundation says that up to 90% of self-diagnosed sinus headaches are actually migraines. Which is important to note, because if you're having migraines, you should be getting help for migraines. Not for, a sinus headache that you're not actually having. The last type of headache we're going to talk about, and only in brief because it is something very serious and thankfully very rare, is the cluster headache. Only going to bring this up because I want you to know, if you do experience this, that you should be getting help from a doctor. Because a cluster headache is a neurovascular disorder involving severe, very, very severe, intense stabbing pain. And these happen frequently, or at least seasonally, episodically. There will be a period of cluster headache attacks, and then a period of remission where you don't have them for a while. They may come and go with the seasons. They may come and go at certain times of the day. Thankfully, though, these are very, very rare, less than 0.2% of the population. In this case, men are the ones who are 3 times more likely to experience them. But again, a thing where people think, oh, I have cluster headaches, it's pretty unlikely that you do. Oh, that's okay, Vinny. I'm all right with that. I want to talk about something kind of serious, though, and one of the reasons why I give this lesson. And that's because I need to get a better song for this. This song's a little bit too upbeat. There we are. As you might know, if you've been around our classroom for a little while, you know that a few years ago, despite being relatively young and healthy, I suffered a nearly fatal brain embolism. We don't really know why. Seems to have been a freak issue. But a blood clot formed in my heart and went to my brain. A few years ago, I was getting up from my desk to go back to sleep, turned off my computer, and slumped right back down in my chair. I became extremely nauseous, extremely dizzy. Couldn't get up. I fell out of my chair, became extremely ill, and had the worst, most splitting headache I've ever had in my life. Intense, overwhelming pain. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't have any frame of reference for this. Never had anything happen like that in my life before. Turned out, though, when I got to the hospital, that I had experienced a posterior inferior cerebellar artery embolism. You remember those vessels that we showed on the screen at the beginning of the lesson? Right there, in the back of my brain, where you see these dark areas. Clot blocked that vessel. If I had not gotten help when I did, I might have died. Thankfully, I took that situation seriously and I got myself to the hospital, made sure that I got there. Now, in the years since, I've mostly fully recovered. Thankfully, being relatively young and healthy at the start, my brain had enough plasticity to recover. When that happens in older people, they're usually not so lucky. I have a few lingering issues. My fine motor control isn't what it was. I'm a little clumsy with my hands. A little bit of balance issues, because that's what the cerebellum helps control. But I want to bring that up, and I like to show this because it's important to reinforce that this is very serious. A headache is a headache until it's not just a headache. So we're going to show a little infographic so that you can help recognize something in yourself or in someone else. And I'm so glad to hear that, Vinny. I'm happy that this helps. And good luck in medical school. I'm glad to be here too, most of the time. The state of the world is sometimes like, am I really missing out on all that much? Anyway. What you should remember is be fast. The first stage is balance. If you're experiencing, or you notice someone experiencing, a loss of balance. They're dizzy. They're having trouble seeing. Double vision, perhaps. You're looking at their face and they look uneven. If one side is drooping. If one arm feels weak. If they're having trouble talking, they're slurring their words, then it is time to be fast and call 911. Don't delay. Check balance. Check eyes. Check the face. Check the arms. Check the speech. And if you have those symptoms, call 911. Better to be safe than sorry, because every second counts when there is a blockage of blood flow to the brain. But let's put all these things into practice. Let's put all these things into practice. We talked about a good couple of ways to modify our behavior to help minimize headaches. Let's put it into practice. What do you think you could do tonight to improve your sleep? One thing. You don't have to do it all. You don't have to do every single step. But what could you do tonight that would help you sleep better? Just pick one thing to start with. Ralph says go to bed before 2 a.m. That's probably a good idea. I could have not eaten too many heroes before I went to bed. I probably wouldn't have had such a tummy ache. Yeah, you can just put one of those things into practice tonight. You don't have to do it all. We talked about stress, doing things that can help us reduce our stress. Like Mr. Piccolo, he seems totally not uptight. It's probably from all that meditation he does. Egbert, that's a good idea. Put a book on your pillow to remind yourself to do some non-screen stuff before you sleep. That's a very clever choice. You slept through the afternoon. It is winter and you are a bear. Talked about some nutritional issues. What could you do today to help minimize your likelihood of experiencing headaches, nutrition-wise? We talked about posture. What should you do right now, class? You don't even need to wait until tonight when you're going to sleep. You don't even need to wait till your next meal. Are you slouching? Are you shrimping? Are you having incorrect gamer posture? And of course, we talked about movement, making sure you get yourself some nice movement, like this character here doing a little jogging. And of course, environment. Making sure that you are trying not to drink a little water. Yes, you could do that right now in this moment, Setsuna Alpha. You could hydrate. I'm going to finish this delicious glass of Mountain Dew because I'm having a little caffeine. But we want to close off with something a little bit more broad, something that's more universal. A lot of these problems that we talked about, you've probably noticed, are related to modern issues. Modern problems. Maybe that's why we have so many headache issues. You got the artist posture, Vinny. You got like one foot up on the desk and an arm behind your head, and the screen is 2 inches away from your face. Yeah. Sometimes that's just the way it is. But you should do some posture exercises in between that. Make sure you're moving around every 60 minutes. A lot of these are related to modern issues of money and work stress, or social isolation, especially after COVID, or air quality. More of us are taking medication. Posture issues. We're spending more time in front of screens, eating more processed food. Our diets are more irregular. We're eating more convenience food. We're overstimulated. Blood pressure is jacked up from social media. A lot of distress in the world. All of these things make it more likely to experience headaches. And a lot of this is stuff that we can't fix. That is, we can't fix them alone. But a better world is possible. We need to keep that hope. And we need to work together to do what we can to minimize these issues. Because we can do all kinds of things for ourselves, trying to get better sleep, trying to eat a little better, move around more. But if we want to fix these issues that affect us all, we're going to need to do that together. Anyway, that's my little spiel to connect this to broader social issues. You did a great job, though, class. So I want to ask if you have any final thoughts, if you have any final questions. You did a great job. You were attentive. You asked good questions yourselves. You made good comments. Squinting's a big issue for you, Vinny. Yeah, the The eye strain, for sure. All those little tiny eye muscles. There. All of these tiny little muscles in your eye, controlling your eye. If those are constantly clenched and tensed, yeah, you might have headaches in and around your face, your facial places, your face, in and around your face. Moki and Ori don't get headaches because they don't have any stress. They have everything provided for them. All they have to do is eat and sleep and play. And still they find ways to be naughty. At any rate, though, class, you did a great job, so congratulations. Here is your certificate of completion for your participation in our headache lesson. I will put your name on one of these and send you your digital certificate if you would like. You can join us in our Discord, and I can send it to you there. And you can follow us on our socials at the links there in the chat. This lesson will be in our YouTube VODs playlist after I've compiled it. And you can check that playlist out there.